everyone. I'm Dana Perino, along with Lisa Booth, Juan Williams, Brian Kilmeade, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. Speaker Nancy Pelosi facing new questions about how much control she has over her own party. This comes after a week of infighting about an anti-hate resolution that the House passed yesterday. Some Democrats upset that the final measure did not mention Ilhan Omar by name following her recent comments that are being called anti-Semitic. In an apparent dig at the freshman lawmaker, a senior House Democrat telling Fox News, quote, "All of our problems are caused by 3 people." House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy blasting Pelosi for failing to rein in her new members.
You need to mark it as the moment that the new Democrat socialist wing of the party overtook their own leadership. The socialist grip could not be tighter. This isn't the Democratic Party that we've come to know. The transition is now complete. That the Democrat socialist wing of the party controls their own leadership.
It's interesting, Brian, that Nancy Pelosi really owes her speakership not to these new firebrands, the freshmen that are making all the noise in the news, but to the moderates that won in swing districts and beat those Republicans that were having a tough time. But now it's like the only one that can get attention are the freshman members that are making a lot of noise.
It's unbelievable because in the beginning it was like, look how powerful she is. Look at what command she has. And look at how Paul Ryan dropped the ball. And then they thought, wow, is she going to be able to go to the middle to make sure those moderates keep those seats? And now the story is, how did she get this so out of control where it needed 48 hours just to have a resolution that would say anti-Semitism is wrong? Now we had a resolution that said everything we learned in first grade still holds. Don't be mean to people. And now we have a situation where they actually told us, did these freshmen, this Minnesota freshman in particular, Omar, when she came out and said, oh, by the way, I'm going to need you to change the rules because I'm going to be wearing this headdress. 181 years, no one was allowed to wear anything on their heads. Now they can. Then they go out and go, Lindsey Graham is compromised. I thought to myself, what's going on here? And then we find out about all these other past tweets and her apologies and backtracking. And then you see a situation where no one can rein them in. I thought she chose in the beginning not to. Now I realize she can't.
Yeah, Lisa, has it gotten away from them? Like this is like basically a defining moment, or do you think that now that they've gotten past this week that they can pull things back together?
Well, I don't think they've really gone past it because the resolution was a joke, right? And even Democrats criticized it, like Representative Deutsch, who is a Jewish Democrat member of Congress, called his party out for failing to specifically just address the anti-Semitism. But to your point earlier, Nancy Pelosi is facing this big challenge because there's no doubt that the party is veering towards the left. You look at something like Medicare for All, which Bernie Sanders introduced during the 2016 election, that was once considered outside of the mainstream. Now it's a mainstream part of the Democratic Party. And you see the front runners for the 2020 presidential election embracing it. It's almost a litmus test. You look at things like the Green New Deal. You look at extreme stances on abortion. So the party is certainly going to the left. And the problem for Democrats, which you pointed out, Dana, is a lot of these moderate Democrat members who represent Republican-leaning districts who could be in jeopardy in 2020, and also alienating independent voters heading into 2020, and also some of these Rust Belt states and critical states that Democrats need to win.
But even Nancy Pelosi won. She has tapped the brakes on impeachment, on Medicare for All, and on the Green New Deal. She's basically kind of dismissed all of them in public comments, and yet it is what's getting all the attention.
Well, I think that's the media, but, I think that's a legitimate thing because this is the controversy. This is what people are talking about. To my mind, the big slip up here is that otherwise we'd be discussing things like the Republican revolt against the president on the emergency claim for the border, or we'd be talking about the Democratic bill H.R. 1, which tries to lay out new rules with regard to ethics and campaigns and voting. So essentially, they have run over what Pelosi wanted to be the message at this time. I will say this. I think Pelosi did a great job. I don't think she's under the pressure you guys described because she held her caucus together.
She put the mic down and hung out and walked out. She said, if you're not going to listen to me, I'm going to leave. She left.
But the 23 votes, Brian, that went against this resolution, not one, Lisa, not even people who said, oh, we kind of think you should have been more specific about Omar and about anti-Semitism. Not one Democrat voted against this. The party held together, and for her, that's a major triumph because if they had split, just like we're talking about the dissension within the ranks, we would really be focused on people, especially if a Jewish member had voted against this resolution.
Let's get Greg in here.
Oh, no, thank you. I'll stay out of it for now. I'm looking forward to the Michael Jackson segment. Hey, no, I got to tell you one thing about Omar. No one is safe right? She just today slammed former
got the
president.
sound.
Oh, you have the sound? Go for it.
Let's listen to it. As a quote, sorry. Well, then I will do it.
In your voice.
No, I'm not
Jana's
going to try to
voice.
do it in her voice. All right. Omar says the hope and change offered by Barack Obama was a mirage, recalling the caging of kids at the U.S. border and the droning of countries around the world on Obama's watch. She argues that the Democratic president operated within the same fundamentally broken framework as his Republican successor and said, "We can't be only upset with Trump. His policies are bad, but many of the people who came before him also had really bad policies. They were just more polished than he was," Omar says.
All right, so back to what I was saying.
Michael Jackson.
Like, no one is safe, including President Obama. She slammed President Obama. Doesn't she know that is our job? What are you? There's turf in this place, and she's coming in on our turf. Look, this is what they did which was hilarious and clever, what the Democrats did, okay? She does something wrong. She has a litany of anti-Semitic slurs. Instead of acknowledging it and putting her name up there like the Republicans did with Steve King, they threw it into a bucket of other wrongs, which dilutes the actual condemnation. I think we know that that's the obvious strategy by inserting it with other kinds of hate crimes and hate thoughts and so on and so on. So she kind of it's like taking a bruised apple at a farmer's market and putting it in a pile of other bruised apples. They all look the same. That's what they tried to do.
Nobody likes a bruised apple.
But see, I don't think that's clever. I think it's a win for her.
No.
I just think it's a flat-out win for her.
No, it's I'll tell you why it's clever. It's clever because then you have the Republicans saying, okay, now they can point to you and go, you Republicans didn't vote for an anti-hate bill. You must really be haters. So it was it was jujitsu. Is that what it is? But here's the thing that I find interesting. It's amazing how traditionally liberal the right is now and how right-wing, old-school right-wing the left is, because you have Republicans condemning anti-Semitism, fighting for free speech on campus, peace talks in North Korea. Meanwhile, the Dems can't agree on anti-Semitism. They want a Cold War with Russia again, North Korea and the Saudis, and they want to shut down dialogue on campus. We have a totally flip-flop world.
Yeah, especially when you are going after Obama or defending Obama, I should say.
Well, I'm sorry, but they want us to get this other topic in because House Democrats aren't the only ones divided. The 2020 presidential hopefuls are also split over what the party's vision of America should be. The latest progressive shift comes from Elizabeth Warren announcing a proposal to break up big tech giants, including Google, Facebook, and Amazon. Warren claims they are monopolies with too much power. Brian, she doesn't care about the Pocahontas stuff. She's like, I'm putting policies on the table.
Right. Very interesting policies. Break up successful companies and make sure they're not successful. I don't know what she's going to go on legally to break up Google because there is Bing. We don't use it. There is Yahoo. They're just not as good. So I don't know. Take the most successful thing about America and then destroy it. That's a good one way to run. Being that Kamala Harris wants to legalize prostitution, she can't do that. Or legalize pot. Cory Booker had that. Or Medicare free preschool, Sanders has that. She's got to pick out something else that makes her unique. I just don't think this is going to resonate with anyone who has somewhat respect for the free market.
You know who people should be looking at and people aren't giving him enough attention is Bernie Sanders. He is the only Democrat who's thrown his name in the hat that is generating an excitement on the left. You're seeing,
who's genuine, though.
Well, yeah, well, exactly. And unlike all these other people, he comes across as authentic as well. And I think when you have such a crowded primary field, unique situations happen. I think there's very much a plausible situation where Bernie Sanders is the one that emerges as the front runner in the Democratic Party.
Greg, does she get any credit for doing something that no one else has done? When she's like, here are specific policy proposals I'm putting forward.
I just don't. You know what? She's all about co-opting someone else's character. First it was Cherokee, now it's AOC. I think that she is trying to be AOC.
That's funny because she was in Long Island City today making this announcement.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that is funny.
Here's the thing about this.
I'm going to get me a beer.
And thanking her husband for being in their house. Where is he supposed
Let's
to
let
be?
Juan have a last word.
house.
No, I just think it's very difficult for the Democrats because initially they were very pro these high-tech firms because the high-tech firms give a lot of money to the Democrats, very supportive. But you know what? When it comes to issues, and we've seen this week with Facebook, they're looking at the privacy rules. They're trying to revamp, especially after 2016.
Yeah, they know it's
and the
coming.
Russians.
Yeah, we'll have
There's
9
a
companies who
tremendous.
don't want to
And
show
so
privacy.
I think you're wrong, Brian. I think there are lots of people in this country who say you've got to regulate. You see the Europeans already saying these high-tech companies right now are running over our societies, making a
I'm not sure
ton
about
of
running-
money.
Regulate
No
different from
responsibility.
Isn't
I'm
regulate
not sure
different
about
from break
following
up?
the Europeans right off a cliff. New questions over Michael Cohen and whether he was coached by Democrats before talking to Congress. We have
Yes.
details next.
Welcome back. Bombshell new development in the wake of Michael Cohen's hearing on Capitol Hill. Republicans now asking if he was coached by Democrats beforehand. Sources say that Cohen met with the staff of Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff 4 times over 10 hours leading up to his public testimony last week. Cohen's lawyer, Lanny Davis, defending the move, saying it was, quote, completely appropriate, and he would have done the same thing for Republicans had they asked. Dana, I'm going to start with you because I know you're
I'm
fired
sorry, Brian is writing notes on my page and I can't read what it says.
We had a pregame.
So
I feel it was
for the people at home, the reason I'm going to Dana and Brian first is
you
they
like
were
her
getting
better.
into this before, so they're both fired up. So
I'm not
Dana,
fired up.
well,
I don't really care.
Well, okay, so Adam. well, Dana, you know what I'm.
Thanks.
All right.
No,
well,
here's the thing. You think it's a huge deal that Adam Schiff is shifty
don't
and
tell
that it's
me
a
what I
problem.
think.
You just said.
So Dana, do you? Adam Schiff has downplayed this, saying that it's completely
Right.
normal. Is it?
well,
I want to hear her yell at Brian more. And Brian, you yell back at her.
Well, someone start and then the other go. So Dana, you go first.
Lanny Davis is the lawyer, right? He's a good one. He's been through this before. And the committee said, you're coming up here because you're going to have to talk to us because you lied to us the last time you were here. We want to see you up here. We're going to go through this so we can walk it through. Maybe that's inappropriate, except for that they offered it to the Republicans as well. The Republicans didn't want to do it. Okay, fine. That's fine. But the 2 biggest headlines that came out of Michael Cohen's testimony, the number one thing that President Trump wanted, Michael Cohen said, no evidence of collusion, number one. So did the Democrats coach him to say that? And the second headline was, President Trump did not directly tell me to lie. Okay, so those are the 2 things that the president could possibly be in trouble for. Michael Cohen sides with the president on those 2 things. So if the Democrats were trying to coach him, they didn't do a very good job.
So Brian's raising his hand. So Brian, ding, 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 you're next. Go.
Okay, first off, what bothers me is the deception. When he asked, Adam Schiff says, who was just talking about logistics and he was worried about his security. That's not true. They met 5 different times for 12 hours. My goodness. And you told me something I didn't know. I did not know Republicans were invited to come to New York and meet with him. So if that's
They
true,
had the
that's a little different.
opportunity to do it, and they
Well, they were a little bit surprised that it was at this length. They had no idea. That's why Turner wrote that letter saying, did you actually rehearse this? Was this a rehearsal? Some of these the Q&As that got on the record. Number 2 is the Benghazi hearings, all the controversy with the Benghazi hearings. There was one time in which a Democrat was not invited to a one-on-one session with a key witness because a whistleblower wasn't too secure with what he was going to say that it wouldn't have leaked out to the media. And Elijah Cummings went crazy. So just do it the same way. There's no legal reason to bring Republicans in, but it's the right thing to do traditionally. And it did come out. They said that he changed. They said that Trump lawyers changed his remarks, and they didn't. That turned out to be wrong. They didn't change his remarks because they found his original, the Moscow Tower talk stopped in January. That's exactly what he intended to say.
I think that if you look at the Cohen hearings, at the end of the day, did it help or hurt President Trump? And I would argue that it absolutely helped him.
Well, and to that point, Greg, I want to get you in on this.
Please do.
Just to the point that Dana just made, does it help?
I wasn't listening.
Oh, well, that does not help.
You're not interested? You're not listening? What's
you
going
wanted
on
me
with
to
this
yell
show?
I'm
How do you
kidding.
get
I'm
the ratings
joking.
you get?
I'm joking
does
because
it
we're real.
it
Unlike your
help?
crazy show in the morning.
You don't even know they're on in the morning. You're sleeping till noon.
Does it help order in the court? Does it help anyone to embrace Michael Cohen? Because if
No,
you-
he's quite crazy. To your point about Adam, what's his Schiff being shifty? I don't think people keep saying he's like Joe McCarthy, right? He's on this witch hunt. That's what the Republicans compare. He's more, in my opinion, like Charlie McCarthy, in that he's a doll on strings, and the strings are pulled by an activist media. He's doing all of this because he's being rewarded with the spotlight. He's so wooden and stiff. He makes John Kerry look like a gummy worm. But he is in control of the media, and as long as the media is chasing this, he'll keep chasing them.
Well,
Well, I gotta say, I gotta introduce you to Devin Nunes, because if you
I
think
know
of
him.
a
He's a nice
guy
fella.
who was
We play
playing in the
racquetball.
media and absolutely a stooge for President Trump, guess what? That was Devin Nunes when he was in charge of House Intel. So I mean, I don't see
But
how
Juan,
that's.
can I-
And let me just finish.
but-
And I think that when you stop and review the idea that this is a witness who had lied to them in 17 to the Congress, the idea that they would say, well, we want to review what you're going to talk about. We want to know what you have knowledge of so that we can prepare going over things like catch and kill stories with the National Enquirer, exactly what was the
But Juan, does
relationship
it help?
with David
So
Pecker.
David Axelrod put out a tweet in response to the House Judiciary Committee's sweeping document request from 81 people saying that this plays in to President Trump's witch hunt narrative. Doesn't it?
No, it plays into
Why
a
not?
media narrative that tries to say it because the Congress has a legitimate oversight.
But all
role,
these people have
and they
already
should
been
be
part of
asking.
Mueller's investigation.
No, this
The House
is
and
a
Senate have both
distortion.
done,
I'm so sorry that David Axelrod bought into this distortion because you want Congress to ascertain the facts before bringing any charges or going after impeachment. They aren't doing that.
Isn't it
They're
redundant,
gathering
though?
facts. That's their legitimate role.
But isn't it redundant, though, when Mueller has already been doing this investigation since 2017?
No, it's not.
You've got
redundant.
both
We
the
don't
House
even
and
know
Senate
what's in
committees
the Mueller
investigating.
report. So, I mean, let's assume that Mueller comes up with nothing.
Did
They're
you guys
not
hear
redundant.
that Jesse Smollett got indicted on 16 felony counts? We should do that story.
Well,
Definitely do.
funny you say that because breaking
Why
news
say it?
out of Chicago, as Greg just said, there's more legal trouble for Jesse Smollett. We have the latest coming up ahead on The Five. Plus, the fallout intensifies over that explosive new documentary about Michael Jackson. All of those details when we return. Stay tuned.
HBO's controversial documentary Leaving Neverland, prompting new questions about Michael Jackson's legacy. And now, more outlets distancing themselves from the world's biggest pop star. The Simpsons announced they're pulling an episode featuring Jackson's voice after the documentary alleged the late singer sexually abused 2 children. All of this comes after several radio stations across the world have decided to stop playing Jackson's music. And one of the singer's biggest defenders now pulling back his support. Longtime friend to Michael Jackson, actor Corey Feldman, saying this.
I don't want to be perceived as I'm here to defend Michael because I can no longer do that. I cannot, in good consciousness, defend anyone who's being accused of such horrendous crimes. But at the same time, I'm also not here to judge him because, again, he didn't do those things to me, and that was not my experience.
Well, so this is a kind of a telling moment. So we have The Simpsons pulling an episode with Michael Jackson's voice in it. We have a Canadian radio station and several other radio stations around the world pulling his music. A statue in Manchester, England being pulled down. The estate, the Michael Jackson estate, now dropping this concert film that they were going to run and ending a Broadway musical that was going to be on display in Chicago. Lisa, why now? Because we knew so much of this.
Right. Isn't that sort of pathetic that it's taken this long for there to be this kind of response to Michael Jackson? I mean, you can go back in 1993 where he faced a police investigation, reached a settlement with a young child and their family for $23 million. You have his sister, LaToya Jackson, in 1993, telling MTV, basically accusing her brother of being a pedophile, saying, what business does a 35-year-old man have having little boys stay with him for 30 days, right? So this information we have known. There was, again, another documentary in 2003 by Martin Bashir talking about all of this, a 12-year-old cancer victim saying that Michael Jackson told him, if you love me, you'll spend the night in my bed. So why now? It's pathetic that it's taken this long. And I think the reason is because we put celebrities on such a pedestal that we basically let them get away with so much when this has been in her face and all clear for so long.
So, Greg, one of the Simpsons people was asked, why are you pulling this now? Because you knew just what Lisa's talking about. And the answer was, but he was acquitted in 2005, although he had settled one case back in 1993.
To me, a lot of this stuff is very easy virtue signaling. I don't think it's that impressive. When you reduce the supply of something, what happens? You have scarcity, that increases the value. So hold on to your Michael Jackson records. The big question that they're talking about, okay, a radio station will say we're no longer going to play his music. It's about who sells the music. Will they actually stop selling the music? You can still, go see Roman Polanski movies. You can see Charlie Chaplin movies if you want. There are a lot of artists spanning across the history of art in paint, in poetry, in acting who are profound scoundrels. And we still listen to them. We still enjoy their music. There's an interesting point that Eric Weinstein makes. The radio stations banning Jackson should actually shut down because the inventor of the radio, Marconi, was a fascist supporter of Mussolini. So if you're going to take virtue signaling to the ultimate level, you will have nothing left to listen to. You will have nothing left to watch. So I think that when the rubber hits the road is, will you sell that thing?
Right.
Not removing something from The Simpsons because you're not losing any money. Will you sell that album?
Well,
And
Dana,
that's the same
just go
with
to
Harvey
that point.
Weinstein.
Yeah.
Dana, let's go to that point.
I have a good point.
If you have music that you know was produced by, in this case, an alleged pedophile, and are you going to associate his reprehensible actions with Billie Jean?
Well, I gotta say, when I first heard that the BBC had decided, I think they were the first ones to say, okay, we're never going to play Michael Jackson music on any BBC radio program. And I asked Peter, of course, British, and he said, that's exactly what the BBC does. They overreact. I think that your point is a good one, which is that we still see those movies. You know, the music is going to be there. I don't understand why it's happening now. And it's fascinating how documentaries are driving decision-making like this. Like, this is a lot. But, like, on Harvey Weinstein, nobody's suggesting that those movies...
Shakespeare in Love. Was that still... I mean, people still go to that movie.
Right, and I'm sure that the actors in that movie don't want it to stop.
Yeah.
So Brian Paris Jackson, his daughter...
Feel bad for her.
Well, she just says, chill out. What are you guys getting yourself all uptight about?
Reacting with a calm mind usually is more logical than acting without a rage. It feels better to mellow out, smoke weed, and think about the bigger picture. Chillax my dudes. I think she's in trouble. That is a cry for help, number one. Here's the problem. Michael Jackson's really not my speed, but I can understand he's mostly considered great. And the problem is his music is so good. How are you going to walk away from it for generations? There are also the people...
So whether you like it or not matters.
No, I'm just saying, I don't like it, but there's no way you're going to get rid of it. It is so considered so elite, so great by musical experts, and he made such an impact over the course of 3, maybe 4 decades. How do you get rid of all that? That's a heck of a dumpster fire.
Well, we may be in the mood for a dumpster
But I mean,
fire.
I
think when you look at what's going on with R. Kelly right now, black radio stations are saying, hey, you know what? R. Kelly, not running it, and it's very popular music. I Believe I Can Fly. But they're saying what he did to black women is so awful, they can't tolerate it. You say it's virtue signaling. I think it may be people taking responsibility because they could make money playing the music.
There's no question. I mean, you can be understandably and legitimately, obviously repulsed by the actions of any of these artists. What I'm saying is that there are certain people, like R. Kelly, I don't believe has been found guilty yet, right?
No.
Right.
They dropped Kevin Spacey from House of Cards, and it looks like the case in Boston is looking pretty shaky. I don't know, but I think that we're entering a place. I don't know where it goes because there's just so many. I mean, Roman Polanski raped a girl, a 14-year-old girl, in a hot tub, and he's considered Hollywood royalty.
Standing ovation.
Yeah, standing ovation at the Oscars.
But isn't
I'm sorry.
But isn't the issue not just if he had faced, legal problems, but just the fact him spending the night with little boys should have been enough on its own?
Well, it's weird. I mean, there's no question. And you think about, Neverland, it's intended to draw in little kids.
Millions and billions at stake.
All right, breaking news about actor Jussie Smollett. This is hot and it's late here on The 5. Stay with us.
All right, here we go. A Fox News alert. Even more legal trouble for Jussie Smollett. A grand jury in Chicago has reportedly indicted the Empire actor on 16 felony counts of disorderly conduct for filing a false police report in the wake of his arrest last month after police say he alleged paid 2 men to help him stage a fake attack he later claimed was a racist and homophobic hate crime. Matt Finn is in Chicago with this latest chapter. Matt, is this 16 counts? Were you expecting this?
You know, right now we are working to independently confirm this, Brian. I just spoke to a clerk at the Cook County Criminal Court who over the phone told me that a grand jury did return 16 additional charges against Jussie Smollett. The court's just closed here, so unfortunately we don't have the documentation in front of us to confirm this, but there are several news outlets here in Chicago right now that are reporting a grand jury just returned an indictment with 16 additional charges against Jussie Smollett for disorderly conduct for filing a false police report, apparently for all of the additional follow-up interviews and reports that Jussie Smollett gave to officers and detectives. Smollett was originally charged with just one felony count of disorderly conduct for filing a false police report for his alleged hate crime in which he claimed President Trump supporters beat him, put a noose around his neck, and called him racial and homophobic slurs. The actor now is apparently in much more legal trouble. This new set of charges each carries a possible sentence of probation to 4 years in prison. He's already pleaded not guilty to that initial first charge, but he's currently free on a $100,000 bond. Brian.
All right, Matt. Well, we have not heard from that camp. We'll have to see, but it's getting a lot more serious. Meanwhile, let's work this around the table. First off, what do you think, Juan? 16 counts?
Well, I imagine that, you know, what the indictment says I'm reading here, there was no reasonable ground for believing that such offenses had been committed. So Smollett says not guilty, and in fact, he went to the set of Empire and told his colleagues that this was not true, that he, in fact, was sticking by his original story. Apparently, even after the delays orchestrated by his lawyers to try to introduce more evidence, the grand jury didn't buy it. And so Smollett, it seems to me, is in deeper water as a liar.
Not only that, at least he's got to free up his friends. He's got Queen Latifah and other on the set standing by him because of their friendship. Come on.
Well, which is surprising because just on its face, the story didn't seem to be credible, right? But what Smollett knew was he understood how so many people in the media on the left see the world. And so that's how this story played into that. And also their assumptions about Trump and Trump supporters, that they're racist, that they're homophobic, that they're all these things. It's the same thing as the Covington kids story, where the media bought the narrative because it's the way that they view the world.
He's scheduled to be arraigned on the 14th. We'll find out for sure. Matt Finn couldn't independently confirm that.
Yeah, but I think it's pretty solid. And also the other thing is, remember, his defense attorney said that they were going to prove to all of us that it was a hoax. We haven't heard one thing about that since then. And a grand jury is made up of the citizens of Chicago who have returned this indictment in a grand jury setting, and that's obviously very serious. That doesn't happen if there's nothing there.
Right. Greg, you're writing something down. Is it your list for this weekend?
Yes, I was.
Do you have something to say?
I was writing one of my Brian Kilmeade insults.
I thought
I keep forgetting them when I go to Dana.
I thought it was number 4 at Aqueduct this week.
Yes, I wish. I predict that he will become, he will choose the victim route, right? He will say that work pressure, maybe drug addiction, a life of discrimination, and the consensus media will probably embrace that. And they will, and they're already, I think it was already happening with the Hollywood Reporter, or maybe Variety, that put him up there and said he's a victim. He's a victim. So he will go the victim route. Will the media learn? No. Right now on CNN, I was watching CNN, they had a Chiron, hate in America, right? That was it. So what they actually did to the police years ago, where they create the illusion of panic, they're doing with hate crimes, and they can't even realize after burning their hands on the Smollett stove that they haven't learned a single lesson. They're going to cling to this hysteria, and it's going to create more hoaxes.
So go back over what you said.
Yeah.
You said drugs. He's going to use drugs as an excuse?
He already kind of has.
Yeah.
What was the other one?
I will say that he will claim that is lifetime of discrimination.
Oh,
I will say workplace pressure.
It's happened before, but this is just the one time where he made it up.
Well, the best.
That's what as a lawyer, that's what I would tell him.
Really? I'm not hiring
and I'm not a lawyer. And I'm not a lawyer.
But I must say, I think the drugs one is the best because apparently he's on record as buying drugs through these two guys that he then hired, right?
Yep. Ma'am?
Dana?
Yes?
When's this going away? I mean, I never heard of Jussie Smollett before. Can I soon forget him?
You can, but I think to Greg's point, there will be others. Like this is, it is something that you think that how could this possibly happen that you have these hoaxes, but you had so many over the years, and because you have this people. Remember Eric Desenhall, who Greg interviewed on his Fox Nation show, and he's a crisis communications guy. He says that these people that perpetrate these hoaxes, these celebrities especially, that they don't even realize that they've been had or that they've been caught. And like, we're all way ahead of him. Like, the grand jury's way ahead of him. And he, like, in his mind, still thinks that he's a victim. It's just something that you and I can't really understand because we wouldn't do this.
Well, I will say this.
Hopefully.
I mean, as much as I think the grand jury, and grand juries, as the famous saying goes, will indict a ham sandwich if the prosecutors want it. But I think in this case that the amount of evidence is becoming pretty persuasive in my mind. But I do think that hate crimes and the spike in hate crimes is very real in this country. And I think that the victim here is not Jussie Smollett. It's all the people who have to endure real hate crime and now will be doubted.
But Juan, I agree with you on that last part, but I still have to disagree with you on there's no spike. But there are people who are victims of hate crimes. I'll give you that.
Okay.
All right, that's all.
That's all.
Might as well just take my camera and I'll just sign out and we'll take a break. And I'm going to argue with Dana in the break. It was the first argument.
I'm going to win.
Yes, as usual. Hey, don't go anywhere. A fan mail is next. Why didn't I get my own shot? Why did I have to share?
I don't know. I was supposed to have a
You know what? You're just no Jessie.
The whole time.
You're just no Jessie.
I was looking at you.
Dancing Queen.
Wow.
Not by ABBA. Fan Mail Friday. Let's get started. Kimberly W. writes, I know Greg will love this one, of course. If a robot could just take over one of your daily tasks, I know which one mine would be. What task would you give it? Brian. Come on.
Is that what this is?
Yes.
This is generic fan
Do you do
mail
any
asking
tasks?
impossible? Do I do
You
it?
don't, what, do you not watch this show?
Friday I don't. I'm usually at some happy hour or there's a ladies' night.
There's no happy hour
But
for you.
I would say
You
that.
go to ladies' night?
I would.
You're a strange man.
Right.
Answer the question.
Yeah.
Ladies are
Maybe the robot should do the 5 for you.
Right.
I think that's what we figured out.
No, I would say
Don't
robot.
you dare put any money in my garden.
I would like a robot to walk my dogs.
Oh, there you go.
Because it's too
because you don't
cold.
love your dogs?
It is too cold right now.
Yeah, I know. I
And
hate
they're
it.
prepared for this. I'm not.
Juan?
I think driving, but that's coming, isn't it? Because,
Yes, it's coming.
Because I get, but the thing is, I don't like losing the control by not driving, because I like driving it to some extent.
This is like therapy for him.
Yeah, but I don't.
Every
but I don't
Friday.
think- I don't think so.
He works through the answer.
He does.
Dana.
I'm going to say making my bed.
Ah.
Because I like a real
Don't-
tight corner.
Don't make it. That's
I always make my bed. You always make your bed. That's the number one first thing you do.
You know why? Because you feel great when you come home to a made bed.
That's
Lisa?
true, though. Also, you just feel more organized as you start your day. I would say laundry, because living in New York,
Yeah.
I don't have a washer dryer in my apartment. So you walk down the hall, then you've got to do the laundry, then you have to wait. It takes like 2 hours, then you have to fold, and it's just this entire process that wastes a bunch of
That's
time.
happening, though. There's a robot
So-
that's going to fold.
Well, and they
Saw
would
that.
probably be a lot more efficient and better at folding than I am.
Exactly.
So it's a win.
We're going to have nothing
What-
to do as people.
What
All of us
my
gonna do
daily
everything.
task would be
Perfect.
just helping children.
Yeah.
It takes up a lot
You
of my
want a
time.
robot to do that?
Yeah, because it takes up most of my morning.
Gigantor?
Yes, yes.
You have such a big heart.
I do, medically even. All right, Fritzy Firecracker, of course. Have you ever sent a text message
Yes.
to the wrong person? Who?
Yes. So I don't remember who it was, but it wasn't bad. Thank
Yeah.
goodness. Thank goodness.
Oh, well,
But
that's a
one
great
time it
story.
happened- One time it happened at the White House. It was an email, though, and instead of sending it to Dana Perino, my staffer sent it to Dana Milbank of the Washington Post. It was, thankfully, was not fatal.
You know what's interesting? Do you ever? But you're a more famous Dana.
I don't know. I mean, Dana Milbank's pretty famous.
No, you're way more famous than Dana Milbank.
I'm not in
People
a
at home,
contest with
people
Dana
at home
Milbank.
don't even know who Dana Milbank is.
Now, Megan's my producer, our producer here for this, but she used to be the Fox and Friends producer.
Yes, she moved up.
Megan, do you remember the text message I sent by mistake? Can you tell me what you think I spell checked it to? Can you tell me? All right, I'm not allowed to say.
Wow, it must have been
That's
bad.
amazing
Yeah.
because see,
It was so bad.
At people at home, we have producers in our ears, and they told Brian he is not to tell that story.
Right.
She said absolutely not.
Okay.
Lisa?
Shut down. Well, this is probably, when I was working on Capitol Hill, I accidentally sent, it's an email, not a text message, to a constituent, and I had meant to send it to one of my coworkers, and it was about our happy hour plans afterward.
The constituent met
innocent,
up. He was
though.
very
I
thrilled.
know, but it was like super embarrassing. I felt, yeah.
Juan?
Well, I mean, I've hit, reply all when I shouldn't have. But the biggest one was, you write an email and then all of a sudden WikiLeaks or somebody swoops in, like I sent an email to John Podesta, and suddenly everybody's telling me, hey, why did you say that? Why do you got I was like, oh my God. So
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you
not
were
good.
actually, that's what scares me. That's going to happen to me. Thank God I don't send any, reply all emails or things like that.
That's tricky sometimes.
Somebody sent the text. sent the wrong message to me, and that was hilarious.
Was it about you?
Yes, it was about me. So the person...
Was it good?
No, the person used to work, it doesn't work here anymore, but was talking about me and how I dressed and sent it to me.
Oh my God.
It was fantastic. I'll tell you who
How
it
you
is.
dressed?
Yeah, it was.
What's wrong with how you
I was wearing.
dressed?
I'll tell you later. Okay. It was just a really.
Was it Bill Hemmer?
No, it wasn't, because the person's gone now. The person's gone.
Not
All
alive?
right, this is a great question. What one thing did you not realize you were dead wrong about your whole life until the last few years?
Oh, it almost is always for me. It's always music.
What?
Like, I don't know that songs are about whatever, and usually I find out right here on set because I'm like, oh, I like that song. Like, oh, you like that? I'm like, oh, I didn't know what that was about.
You know what My Sharona's about, right?
No.
Oh, somebody tell her, Brian.
Pass. I have no idea. This is such.
So you've never changed your
I like
mind?
to prepare for segments. Well, who?
No. You need to. Okay, if you're gonna be our favorite fill-in,
Oh,
Jesse,
okay.
you've got to be able to do this. What's the thing?
Well, just
You're in the
ask me
top
one more
7.
time the question.
Why don't I ask it to somebody else and you can think? Juan, one thing you did not realize you were dead wrong about your whole life until the last few years.
I don't know. This one's hard. I thought I was wrong once, but I was mistaken. I don't know.
Lisa?
Gosh, yeah, this is a hard one. I mean, there's a lot of things I've probably been wrong about my entire life, and maybe I'm still wrong about them.
Yeah, there you go. Brian, you just can't think of any.
I will say this. I thought it would be fun to have a rabbit. And I found myself checking every day. I'm like, why is he still alive? So that was it. It was not fun.
You know what? You should let
and
your
the rabbit
dogs
lasted 10 years.
Let your dogs get after the rabbit.
Right. No, but it turns out
Kidding,
they liked
everybody,
each other.
kidding,
Everybody
kidding,
liked. But
America.
the rabbit had 10 great years, and I miss him today.
Interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
rest in peace,
I
little
realized
buddy.
it would be, I used to think having Brian on the table would be fun.
That is wrong.
I had something else, but I got to go. One more thing is up next.
Time now for one more thing, Greg.
Some sad news to start this off. Tom Shalhoub's father passed away today. His name's Bill Shalhoub. I didn't know him, but I figure he must have been a great guy because he raised a great guy. Everybody knows Tom and loves Tom. So if he's like Tom, you know he was an awesome dude, and pretty sure he had a long and great life. So our condolences from everyone here in the 5 and the GG show and everywhere else at Fox. All right, so let's get to the less deep stuff. Greg Gutfeld show tomorrow, Saturday, 10 p.m. I got Heather Zumaraga, Rob Long, Kat Tim, Tyrus. That's 10 p.m. Greatest show in the universe.
Best show ever. Juan.
He hit the jackpot. Yup, $273 million in the Mega Million jackpot game. But first, Mike Werski had to find the lottery tickets. He had left them at the store. Here's Mike.
Amazing.
I put the tickets down to put my money away and did something with my phone and just walked away.
After realizing he lost the tickets, he went back to the Phillipsburg Quick Check, and to his surprise, he was told that someone turned in the tickets, a stranger. 2 days later, the unemployed Werski realized, hey, these are the winning numbers. And he was a multimillionaire. As for the stranger who found the tickets, listen to Mike.
I'm looking for the guy that handed them in. I got to find him and thank him.
Yeah, well, I think the fates, he should thank the lucky stars. You know, St. Patrick's Day is coming. He's a
Indeed.
lucky guy.
It's so great. Well, I've got a nice story here. So most kids spend their, snow days sleeping in, but not these kids in New Jersey. Patrick Lanigan is a senior at Parsippany High School. He rallied his friends and classmates to help shovel a neighbor's driveway at 4:30 a.m. So the neighbor is Natalie Blair, and she's currently on kidney dialysis and would not have been able to make her 6 a.m. treatment because an ambulance has to come and pick her up. So Patrick and his friends had a sleepover where they played video games all night to make sure they wouldn't doze off before morning. And within just a half hour of shoveling, they cleared the path. And of course, Natalie said Patrick is a wonderful young man and thanked all of his friends. And what a good example they set. These nice young guys.
Right.
Brian?
That is a great story. So happy birthday to the highest paid lineman on the Cleveland Browns. What a classy thing to do. They said happy birthday to 29-year-old Kevin Zeitler. Isn't that nice? 2 hours later, they traded Kevin Zeitler to the New York Giants for Olivia Vernon. So he is now a New York Giant, but he just knows that his old team wished him happy birthday. It looks like an even swap. Vernon was getting paid too much for not doing enough. He also sat during the national anthem. So the Giants need an offensive lineman, and now the Browns have another great player. The Browns are going to be a force this year.
Okay, well, we'll revisit that next year. Lisa.
All right, well, do not mess with 3-year-old preschooler Kinley McFetridge. She got in trouble with her teachers for putting little Jack in a headlock after he asked her to marry her. Listen to this.
What happened at school? I took a headlock down and Jack and took it down.
You took him down? Why? What did he say?
Because kids don't get married.
So when her mom, Kristen, told her that she's not supposed to put boys in a headlocks, she replied, "But that's the greatest thing ever."
Okay.
Do not mess with
And
this
it is
little girl.
International Women's Day, of course. All right, that's it for us. We'll see you back here on Monday. Special Report is up next with Chris Wallace tonight. Hey, Chris.